Broadcasting live from the Kiss Gower Law Studios. Get the power of Gower. GowerLaw.com.
And here we are again. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Voices of Faith Transforming the Community program from the Saginaw African American Pastors. The mission of the Saginaw African American Pastors, known as SAAP in the greater Saginaw County region, is that we're a Christian faith group dedicated to addressing racial, social, and economic justice at all levels of the community. We do it with faith, with strength, and with boldness. And in order to ensure that racial equity is the experience of all citizens in Saginaw County, we engage, we advocate, and we collaborate. We engage in intentional conversation with leaders and decision makers at the highest level of every sector that we can expose to the community to address and correct concerns. We advocate for systemic changes that eliminate biases and prejudice toward our community, the Black community, in every sector of the community, especially in the areas of policing, employment, banking, and housing. We collaborate with community and faith-based organizations and agencies and entities that seek to eliminate injustices in Saginaw County by taking concrete steps in partnership with others toward racial equity. My name is Hurley J. Coleman Jr. I serve as a pastor at World Outreach Campus Church. I've been serving there for 23 years now. It's the church that my father founded 68 years ago. We've been in the community all of our lives. I'm a lifelong resident and an active participant in the community. So glad to be serving as the president of Saginaw African American Pastors. We unapologetically called ourselves Saginaw African American Pastors because that's the predominant portion of our congregations, and that's also who we are. But we're open and we serve and we collaborate with all communities in every way that we can. So I'm happy to be here with you, and we're happy to invite another person who happens not to be a pastor. He happens not to be a person who has a church that he's the leader of. But if you know anything about Jimmy Green in Saginaw County, in the state of Michigan, in the United States, and even in the world, you know that he has a specific calling on his life that we know causes him to be concerned about people at every level and always doing things, engaging in things to bring about changes. And I want to welcome to this audience and to those of you who've never met him before, a person that I have known for at least 50 years. Mm-hmm. We first met in college. So welcome, Jimmy Green.
Well, it's nice to be here.
How are you, my friend?
I am well, thank you.
You look good.
I always do.
And I'm not saying that just to be pejorative.
No, but I always do.
You do, man.
No, just kidding.
Jimmy, you and I met at Eastern Michigan University.
Yep, 1975.
1975.
Yeah, yep.
At that time, I was just a quiet, unassuming person on college campus, and we were saying before, if people had seen us then, they would not have seen what we are now, especially me. But you want me to
paint a picture of what you just said, or do you want me to paint a picture of what you really were?
I really want you to be Jimmy Green.
Okay, well, you were not shy and retiring. You weren't necessarily loud and boisterous, but that shy and retiring part is a little bit.
You don't think I was shy and quiet and retiring?
Absolutely,
a wallflower.
Absolutely,
come
not.
on, Jimmy.
Absolutely not. You guys were very, very visible, very, very present. There was an air about you guys because you were part of Kappa Alpha Psi, the fraternity, long before I was, and. I don't think anybody would ever call anybody at Delta Nu, Eastern Michigan University, shy. I think there were some who were louder than others, which by definition made the other one seem shy.
Yeah.
But by anybody else's standards, that would, I don't know if anybody who would.
It was a unique day, wasn't it? It was
you were a singer, you and Stevie B and Ace Boone and several others, Rick Ross. You guys were on the yard singing. Wooing the young ladies.
Now people did think that we could sing now.
Yeah, you really could. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I give you kudos for that.
Well, it was a unique time in college for African Americans back in the early 70s,
Oh yeah.
late 60s.
Mm-hmm.
It was a time, and I want to make a point about the fact that during that time there was resources made available to African Americans to go to college that hadn't been available to them before,
Mm-hmm.
and privileges that were afforded. So
Right.
some of us were able to get in college that were under previous limitations would not have been able. And I know that's how I got in. I got in college. I graduated from high school with just below a C average,
Okay.
and was able to get into school with loans and grants. And then at Eastern Michigan, wasn't it amazing that while we were there were times when Eastern Michigan felt like we were an HBCU?
Oh, no question about it. I mean, we, especially when you consider how powerful the fraternities and sororities were at the time. So, and it's funny because I didn't get to Eastern the traditional way. I literally slept on the floor that first year with my cousins. And I wanted to apply at Eastern because I hadn't picked up enough credits in high school at Flint Southwestern to officially graduate. So I remember going up to the registrar's office, and they actually enrolled me pending my transcripts. So then I started at Eastern like 2 weeks, and then I got a letter that I was being unenrolled because I wasn't a high school graduate. So I literally went to the registrar's office. They told me about this accommodation that Washtenaw Community College had with them. So I went to Washtenaw Community College my third week on that campus, and I still lived on the campus.
You hung out with your cousins on campus, because so everybody you were in college, but you just weren't.
yeah, but I was at Washtenaw, so I was never not in college, but then I went to Washtenaw, and then I got transferred over after that. But yeah, and so I had to take a GED. So it's funny because a lot of people don't. I was officially a high school dropout because I had flunked the 10th grade in Flint. And I was out of school because I had lost my eyesight in my right eye. So I spent, 2.5 months in a hospital trying to get glass out of my eye. And so I missed all that school. So when my class graduated, I went back to school and stayed another year. And then, but I hadn't picked up enough credit. So, but I hadn't picked up enough credit. So at that point I was like, I had to get out of Flint though.
Well, that was
best decision I ever made, by the way.
That was part of the lifeline that brought you to the place where you were up at Eastern Michigan, and we had some great times. As a matter of fact, I was just going to tell you that one of our fraternity brothers, Roy McAllister, who is now a city councilman.
Well, he's running for city council.
I'm claiming him to be a city councilman because
I've been involved in politics. I never count those eggs before they're hatched.
He's a tremendous person. He is, and he would serve the city well.
Police officer. Yeah.
Yep.
I agree.
I'm just thinking about how many people that were with us. In at Eastern Michigan at that time have gone on to do tremendous things with fraternity brothers, and it's not just Kappas, but the Alphas there, the Omegas were there, Phi Beta Sigma, and even this group from Flint, Phi Eta Psi. I mean that the world of Black Greeks at Eastern Michigan was a unique world.
Yeah, we never saw. You're right. I mean, we never saw a whole lot of white people like in the Hideaway, for example, or at the Union when we had that. And they were 70%, if not more, of the student body. But it was funny how large we seemed. I mean,
our whole world,
it felt like it was just the opposite.
It was like Eastern Michigan. The campus was like a historically Black college and university. So I mean, we had all the we had a lot of people from Detroit shows. We had the step shows. We had we had everything. We had the cultural. So you move from that, and then you and I knew each other. You were from Flint. I'm from Saginaw. But when you came to Saginaw, I was still in Ann Arbor.
You weren't here.
I was still in Ann Arbor. I got a job right out of college with Washtenaw County Parks and Recreation.
Right.
And I was thinking about this. When you and I were in college, we had some advisors to the fraternity.
Yeah, Theo Hamilton, Robert
Gordon, Eugene Beatty,
Green,
and Jesse
Robert
Rutherford.
Green,
Robert Green.
Rutherford.
Turns out that Jesse Rutherford and Theo Hamilton put my name in with the Washington County Parks and Recreation
Oh,
for
wow.
one of the summer jobs. I was one of the few people that graduated with a degree in Parks and Recreation that actually went directly into the field.
Yeah, you had that white people degree. So we call
Nobody even knew it was such a thing as a Parks and Recreation degree, right? And I laugh sometimes. I got on the dean's list.
But it's true.
I got on the dean's list one summer, man, because I aced all my classes. I had sailing and tennis. I got on the dean's list because I got A's on both for classes. But those men opened doors for me. Along the line, you came back to Saginaw.
Yeah.
And there were men that you came in contact
And
that wasn't for you here at Saginaw.
question.
They may not necessarily have been Kappas.
No. I think about it. I don't think any were. Now that I think about it, they were alphas or
But they were men
who
had the door for another young man.
Yeah, they were because I didn't have my long story is so uniquely different than what people could even imagine. So I was always still looking for sort of that father figure because my dad was absent when, my dad was a alcoholic, good man, but just, poisoned by alcohol. And then my mother, she gave us up at when I was 12. We wound up being adopted by my grandfather, who we called Big Dad, who was an incredible influence, but he was gone throughout the week because he owned a scrap metal company. He worked in Detroit all week. So my Grams was that figure, if you will, the matriarch of our family. So I didn't have that model. I didn't have anybody kind of sculpting my way. And so when I got here, I was in awe because I started in banking, right? And I mean, I walk in this place and all I see is a sea of white folks. And I was fortunate enough, there was a gentleman by the name of Harold Evans who knew, he was a comptroller at Second National Bank. And he introduced me to Henry Marsh. And through Henry Marsh, I met Reverend Austin. I met your father. I met Reverend Coleman. Joe Stevens was, I was intimidated by Joe Stevens because he was just this
bigger, larger than life.
Yeah, he was. There was something about Joe Stevens. He wasn't soft spoken like the others were. And he was just he was my fire where the others might have been my calm. He was just the opposite. And I don't think a lot of people knew the strong relationship I had with Joe Stevens.
Let me just put a pin in that. It was
huge
because I think it's surprising. It may be surprising to people because I've interviewed other leaders, other pastors, and some names just keep popping up.
Yeah.
And that because at that point, when you came to Saginaw, it was in the late 70s.
Nope, it was 1980.
In 1980.
I got here in 1980.
Okay.
I came here March of 80.
In that time period, these men, the names that you identify, some of them, those key men were pastors, others were community leaders.
Yep, Reuben Daniels.
There was a relationship between the pastors and the community leaders in the community that helped them to help the community.
Oh, I used to watch them, and I made a post about this on Facebook. Because I worked at Second National Bank, and I was trying to figure out who and where, and I happened to go into J&E's, Joe and Ellis. And when I was in there,
you got to tell what Joe and Ellis.
Oh yeah, I mean it was the soul food place, which is right near where the police station is right now.
On Genesee.
Yep, on Genesee, and it was this rinky-dink little place, and it felt like home. And everybody who was Black, who was something or somebody, would be in and out of there. So whether it was at 12 o'clock or 1 o'clock or whatever, and I met Paul Leak there, and Paul Leak, and at the time, one of the people who worked for Paul Leak, who was just got his law degree, was Terry Clark. And then Terry Clark and I got to be really close friends, along with Darnell Jackson. And me, Terry Clark, and Darnell Jackson would meet at Holly's Landing. And we were these young and up and coming, Black professionals, or, and I used to watch them because I was in awe of them because they were in law, right? And so I would watch, and Darnell had his own private practice, and I'm just a lowly banker and management trainee, and Terry was an attorney, and obviously look at them now, sitting on the bench. But we would sit at Holly's Landing having fish on Fridays and talk about Saginaw and how we wanted to do what we wanted to do. And so again, I've got relationships in this place that people wouldn't know.
But the reason that it's important to know that, as people need to know something about Jimmy Green, is that it's those relationships that not only nurtured what you were going to become, but also fed into what you needed.
Yeah,
isn't there something powerful
sustained.
that's necessary about people having somebody older, somebody wiser to connect with, to get some information?
Yeah, and remember, you know, I came into this political world, right? So we had different politics. Make that clear. Matter of fact, Henry Marks was funny because he used to always introduce me as the only Republican he liked.
Well, people don't know that. Your grandmother was very close.
She was a political strategist for Governor Romney.
Flint.
She made the first black mayors there, Mayor Sharp, Floyd McCree. I'm trying to remember who else came after that.
Sharp.
Yeah, no, I said Sharp. It was McCree, and then it was Sharp, and then oh my God, it's gonna drive me crazy. But
I know.
But she was a power broker, and I'm telling you what, she was absolutely amazing that way, and she was such a powerful figure for me. I wish I'd had more exposure to her, but I did when I got older. But when I was younger,
but you brought that politics, and just because you were a Republican did not deter you from engaging with those men.
Absolutely not. People forget, you know, the only reason I was Republican was because it was a mindset. So I came up in severe poverty. Even though I had a rich grandmother, my grandmother had practically disowned my father and my mother because they were drunks. And my grandmother was a professional. She owned Green Home for Funerals, and she was not about to enable.
Yeah, she was not serious for real.
Not about to enable my mother and father. They had a job waiting for them, and they chose the bottle. So my grandmother turned their back on. Now I learned later that that's called principle. Yeah. But at the time, you know, you felt completely disengaged. And people say, "Isn't your grandmother?" Now we're poor, hungry. Just a complete contrast to what people think we had. And they would always say, "Isn't your grandmother Irene Green?" I'm like, "Yeah, she is." Well, you know, they kind of get that look like, "Oh, why are you dressed like that?"
Home for funerals.
Why are you dressed like that? But no, it's amazing to me that my politics came because I didn't know what to be when I grew up. I just knew what I didn't want to be. So my mother and father never worked. We were always on welfare. My mom always sold our food stamps for beer or whiskey or whatever it was she was drinking at the time. So when you consider all of that, so my politics was framed by the idea that I didn't want to be on welfare. I believed in entrepreneurialism and all these things. So I was fed this thing that was completely alien to the way I grew up.
We're coming close to the end of this first segment. I want to take a moment in the next couple of minutes to just talk about what you saw in those men. I mean, I remember when I first came home, two of the first meetings that I had when I first moved back to Saginaw. After my father passed, I came back as pastor. Bishop Kenneth Untner called me to sit down and talk to him and ask me what it was that I thought God wanted me to do. But Henry Marsh and Marty Stark called me to tell me what they thought God wanted me to do. But I had an opportunity to meet with them, and I know that those are the kind of people that you were being in contact with.
Well, you said it. You posed the question. What was it about them? And it's funny because nobody ever introduced them as leaders. They just were. Like you could see it, sense it, feel it.
Say that again, Jimmy. Say that.
Again. They
nobody introduced them
as leaders. No,
but you could.
Oh, of course you did. You knew it. There was a presence. There was a presence about them. It wasn't fiery. It wasn't fire and brimstones. There was a calmness, a power, a confidence about them. And that made you feel that if they asked you or told you something, that was a pathway to take. And they did. Not one of them ever challenged my politics. Not one of them ever challenged who I was, where I came from. They would always put me on a line somewhere forward, not backwards, not staying there. They would always just get, like Joe Stevens in particular. Joe Stevens would always say, "Boy, keep your damn voice." And imagine that, Joe Stevens, and he said, "Boy, keep your damn voice." Man, I mean, you talk about a liberation to keep my voice. I'm like, shoot, Joe Stevens said, and that kind of confidence from people like that, who wasn't a leader, he was just Joe Stevens. that was a powerful thing. I mean, your father, I remember sitting with your dad and Reverend Austin. They were at J&E's. Go back to J&E's, and they invited me over. And your father, I'm not kidding, your father asked me if I like neck bones, and I said yeah. And so he gave me he had a plate of neck bones and black eyed peas. And if you had to know J&E's black eyed peas, I mean, it's like that was like an appetizer.
Absolutely.
That wasn't even the meal yet,
Right,
you know.
right.
And so he shaved off half of his plate and gave me black eyed peas and neck bones, and it was amazing because I was sitting because that's where I'm from. But here's what's interesting about it. They didn't know that. He didn't know that. He didn't know that's how I was raised. He didn't know that was the food I ate. My grams cooked. But for people to make assumptions that you already belonged, that you didn't have to audition, that they just fed you like you were one of their own. I mean, how could I not be like them? That's the funny part. I always wanted to be like them. Had nothing to do with politics. It had everything to do with just feeling this quiet little confident thing that you were going somewhere, and that was it. That's why I started Savalti Group.
I love. We're going to talk about Savalti when we come back. We're getting ready to take a break, but I love hearing people talk about my father. I will go to my grave thinking that my father, H.J. Coleman Sr., was absolutely one of the greatest human beings that ever walked on the planet.
And people would say that because that's your father. I'm saying that he wasn't mine because
he wasn't your father.
No, he was not, and neither was Reverend Austin, and yet I wish they were.
But they treated you like
my son, and I treated him like my father.
And so that moment that he shared his meal with you was not something to tell you to act like this.
Mm-hmm.
He told me weeks before he passed, we didn't even know he was going to die. He said, "What's behind me is my vision. Whatever comes next is your vision. And if you don't do more than I've done, then I failed you and you failed God."
Yeah.
That's a kind of leadership. So we're at the point where we're getting ready to take a break. Jimmy, we're going to come back after a break and talk about this. Let's start with Savalti.
Okay.
Because that's a huge thing.
Sure.
Thanks, ladies and gentlemen. You stay with us now. We'll be back right after this break. Welcome back. This is Bishop Hurley J. Coleman from the World Outreach Campus. I'm serving as the incoming president of Saginaw African American Pastors, and you're listening and watching Voices of Faith Transforming the Community. The Saginaw African American Pastors is a group of Christian faith men and women who are leaders committed to addressing social, racial, and economic justice in our community at all levels. We want to do it with faith, with strength, and with boldness. I'm here today with one of the engaging and entertaining personalities of our community, a gentleman I've known for a long time. And you're getting to know the one and only Jimmy Green. You've heard a lot about what he's done, how he got to be where he is, and the people that he's been in contact with. I will tell you that Jimmy Green has probably shaken the hands of more presidents than most people. He's been at the table with more governors than many people. He's got friends in high places, and he's friend to the people in the lowest places. But in all of that, he's driven by a desire and a commitment to serve. And in everything he does, he goes 100%, maybe 120. One of the things that he is known for in our community is the creation of a group called Saginaw Valley African American Leadership Training Institute, known as Savalti. Jimmy, tell us how that happened and what that really means to you.
I was actually, it's funny, and that came from leadership again, from Henry Marsh. I was actually going to leave Saginaw. I was thinking about going to Atlanta, and I remember sitting at Jake's with Henry Marsh, and I said, well, I don't have any family here, so I got nothing to lose and nobody to leave. He said, well, you need to make your own damn family, and because that's how Henry
Marsh.
Yep, that's how he was. You need to make your own damn family. And I don't think he understood what that meant because it triggered something in me. And then at that time, you got to remember, newspaper full of black men, and I didn't know anybody, right? But Sunnyside Gang, the street, I mean, they were arresting young black men like nothing else at the time. And I uttered something aloud, and I said, you know, are there any boring black men in this city that just go home and watch TV? And I've said that in a forum, and it kind of hit me like, you know what? I need to find out who they are. And so I just started this idea, and we sat down. There were a bunch of us. I don't know. I wouldn't call us leaders, but we were up and coming professionals. And I won't mention names, but there were some of them who are still in the community.
I was there.
Yeah, and it was so funny because I had this idea and I invited people to it. And we sat down. I rented out the Alyssa Rose Center from Betty and Lee Williams, and I had this idea and I rolled it out. And the first day, you know, people, you know, listened to me, and I had all these handouts and stuff like that, this PowerPoint. And I said, I'd like to reconvene and get everybody's feedback. So the next time I had them was a couple weeks later, and I served breakfast. I had Alyssa Rose serve breakfast, and I had everybody who I thought was a black leader in Saginaw. And there were a lot of prominent names in that room, both times. And I remember the debate about what it was named, and I just kept getting pushback. And I remember somebody to me, one of my fraternity brothers, to me, that the reason you're getting resistant is because they think you're just trying to recruit black Republicans. And that was the funniest thing ever, because that was the furthest thing from my mind. I was really trying to change the optics of young black men here in Saginaw. And so from that point forward, and I went to you and I said, I don't know what to do. And you said, just do it. Just go. And I went, and the other person I went to, Joe Stevens.
Mm-hmm.
And Joe Stevens cussed. And I won't cuss on the air, but he cussed. And he cussed at me because I was thinking about quitting, you know, just like, you know what, I don't need this. And you know how you get when you're frustrated, you know, I'm cussing, and he cussed me out. And that's when I decided when I had, so it's like almost the devil and you know, and the angel, you know,
on
so
your
you got,
shoulders, yeah.
you got the Reverend Coleman saying, no, you know, go ahead. Then you got the other guy on your shoulder going, oh boy, you better. And so I did. And so I literally started recruiting young black men. But before I did that, I went to every single person I knew who I was sitting in rooms with: Dick Garber, Sam Shaheen, Paul Furlow, Larry Preston. I went to Dow, I went to HSC, I went to Corning, I went to all these different places that I had access to. And I said to them, I said, I don't want anything from you other than you opening the doors, because you all know me, but you don't know them. And who's them? Well, let me introduce you to them. And that was the whole point of Savalti. It was that I'd always walk in rooms. I was the only one of me in those rooms, especially business rooms. It was me. That was tiring to me. And so business after hours, chamber things. I mean, it was like one or two or three of us, but it wasn't reflective of us as a community. And that's how Savalti started. And it was so funny. I got these 25 black men. And I remember I went to Paul Chafee at the Saginaw News, and Corey Mitchell was one of the original ones. And I said, I don't want to see us on the Metro section. I don't want to see us on the living section. I want to be in the business section. I still to this day have that on my phone, pictures of 25. And it was so funny because it shows you how we don't get it. So I remember at our first outing, I said, you guys got to get headshots. Headshots? What do you mean headshot? I mean, you got to go on to the Saginaw News and get your headshots, you know, so we can put them in, because they did it. And so they all got professional headshots done, which they kept. And then that was when we got through with this 12-month program, going everywhere. I remember Ted Braun teaching them the fine etiquette of board, how to be a board member. I remember Pete Shaheen showing them what fine dining setups look like. It was so many different things that we went through. I remember Andre Buckley getting a job with upstart called TriStar Trust, which is a multi-$100 million investment firm. Now, I still think about all these people who wound up someplace as a result of being exposed.
All the community,
they were just exposed.
But Jimmy, what you described.
I want to say one more thing. It was a funny thing I did. What a lot of people didn't get. There were like 5 ex-felons in Savalti, and I knew that. But I knew that if I rolled them out like they were just like everybody else, they would be received that way. And it was true. They all got received that way. They were just other black men. They weren't ex-felons because I didn't want that stigma, right? And I did that in the second group too. I had ex-felons intermingled with,
but you were
mainstream.
exposing not only them to the community, but you were exposing the community to them.
Yes.
And all of that was new. All of that was fresh.
Mhm.
And it was, and the reason I wanted to bring that up,
I didn't get any
because-
Republicans out of that either.
well, but you also
Seven frat brothers.
you also didn't get much support from places that you thought you might have.
I got no support. I got no support.
You
I
can't
got
say no support because I'm
well, you know what I mean. I'm
a guy. I'm somebody.
I gotta. You're right. I mean, you and maybe 4 other people.
The consideration though is that you did not allow what other folks didn't do to stop you from doing.
Pastor, I'm just being frank. I got ostracized by Black Saginaw. They were ticked off at me because I went on my own. I started introducing all these young black men to those white people. And I remember Henry Marsh saying to me, Jakes, I'll never forget this. And Henry Marsh said to me at Jakes, and he pointed across the river, and he said to me, look, I'm going to warn you now that the closer you get to them is the further you'll get from them. And that was a sad commentary to me. When he told me that, I didn't get it, but boy, I got it. And it was true.
And it's sad that it's a two-sided coin, because in some instances, the closer you get to the other side, the worse it is on the other side for you. And in some, because there's going to be people, I would submit to you that people who are listening to this and watching us need to understand that whenever you have a calling that's bigger than yourself, when you have something that you have to do that's bigger than yourself, it's going to cost something.
Oh man, major.
And see, when the reason here
Yep.
at Saginaw African American pastors, I'm talking to Jimmy Green. It's not just because Jimmy Green is the voice of the Spirit, not just because Jimmy Green has been visibly known as the black Republican, now the black.
Which, by the way, I haven't been a Republican since 2015.
Yeah, but you were long enough, so people still got.
That's what I mean. I don't fight it.
But here
it is.
But the reason you're here, Jimmy, the reason that you're here, and I'm talking to you now, is because I want people to hear the calling on your life. It's bigger. It's bigger than anything that people see. There's something that really drives you. You want to see black people, white people, Hispanic people, all people. You want to see them fulfill the best of their lives that they do. And you always try to make ways to make that happen. You don't mind putting yourself in the fray, but specifically people need to understand that you invested heavily in not only Savalti, but the Henry Marsh political leadership.
Absolutely. And that's funny because I had this conversation with Bob Johnson. You know, I've served on 32 board of directors. I've helped save the zoo, helped save the art museum. You know, I'd started Savalti, started Henry Marsh. I could go on and on and on, but I've never once been acknowledged by the NAACP. And I know why, you know, because there is still an older guard that still resists the idea of acknowledging me because it would offer me relevancy.
Now, you know, I'm going to say this out loud. You know, I'm going to get some kickback from.
But that's okay. No, but I'm okay
statement.
with it. Listen, let me explain that. I'm okay with it because I've watched them reward and award the fruits of my tree, especially the Savalti people, the Kevin Gregory's, the Bob Johnsons, the Eugene Seals, the Andre Reeds. I can go down the list of those and including the women, because the third year I brought women in. So I look at Lemitra Edie and I look at the Jacksons and the Youngs, and I think about all these women who've reached PhDs. I mean, they had access and opportunity. Brenda Beckham, I can go down the list. So I've watched these people reap the rewards of access, which was my only goal. They had access and resources and opportunity. People knew them, black and white, people knew them. And so I have been awarded and rewarded.
Well, put a pin in there right now. Put a pin in there right now, because I think it's important for people to be able to just kind of let that sit there and let it marinate, that the fruits of your labor are not a medal or a trophy or an award, but they're in the productivity of the people that you've been able to inspire and expose to opportunities that may or may not have been afforded them had they not been exposed. Right there, and put a pin in that and talk about where we are right now as a community, as a country, as a nation, as a people.
Ask Ask the people like a Jeffrey Bulls or Twanny Gray or Kevin Gregory. I can go down the list. And I remember something that I either read or heard, and it was, when I die, don't judge me by the people that don't like me. Judge me by the people, or don't judge me by the people that like me. Judge me by the people that don't. Because it's easy to get accolades from people who like you. But if you look at the company of the people who don't like you, it'll tell you everything about my life. And I'm very much at peace with that. You know, I am led by faith. Whether people like to see that or not, I am so faithful. I don't consider myself very religious, and I'm not going to make an argument about it, but I am a person of unshakable. Unshakable faith.
I had to deal with your bishop. Which bishop was it? I think it was Bishop Carlson, and I had a conversation. One of the bishops.
Carlson was mean. Sistone was my guy.
It must have been Bishop Sistone, because he would go out and sit at Fuzzies and
Sistone. He loved Fuzzies.
Yeah, yep. He was a really, really great person.
He was. Yep.
And he always wanted to call me bishop, and I told him I wasn't a bishop.
Well, you are now.
But and I think he was prophetic. But anyway, one of the things that he said to me about you was that you and he had a conversation, and he said, "But are you a good Catholic or not?" And you told him, "I may not be a good Catholic, but I'm a good human being, and I have faith."
I know that. I also told him. I said, because he would always chant. Because he'd always say that to me. He'd always say, you can do better. And I said, Bishop, look, if I do better, you ain't got a job. I said, you need me. What are you talking about? You need me. You don't have anything to do on Sunday without people like me. And he just laughed.
Jimmy, take a moment and talk about politics and the impact that the faith community needs to have engaging people to participate in the processes that make us who we are, that make our country what it is, and engaging, especially in a time like this. You have told people over and over that you are not Republican, that you're independent, you're not Democrat. So this is not a political conversation.
It is not. Gerald Kareem, I'm using his name, called me last night, and he laughed because he said, I've been telling people for years, you ain't no Republican, you care too much. And there's a lot of truth to that, because I would be, if I had to define myself, you'd consider me more of a fiscal conservative, a free market kind of Republican, but I'm a social liberal. You ask anybody who's in the LGBTQ plus community, ask anybody who I advocate on behalf of Medicaid and Medicare or any other social issue, DEI, you go down the list, choice, those are all tenets to me. That's me. So it's hard to define me. And I think it's easy for people to put me in a block based on, I had somebody call me up 2 weeks ago, and since I left ABC, and he said to me, you've changed a lot since you've left ABC. And I said to him, no, I'm still the same person. You just never asked me a second question. So they looked at me as a right to work guy and a prevailing wage guy, and that's all they need to know.
Well, what do you tell people that they need to do? How do you tell people that they need to engage?
It's so funny, because I think party politics has shaped people's views. It's made them ignorant. And I mean that on both sides of the aisle. There was a point where we used to be especially as a Black demographic, we've lost our ability to shape politics. And that is the block that other people have understood. Jews, the Asians, LGBTQ plus, like they are a block of people who represent their interests. I think we've lost that way. It's like I watch Saginaw now. You've got people running for office where it is clear that this division will ultimately cost them a seat of power. And yet there's this thing that we've lost along the way, almost like we've arrived, and we haven't. I keep talking about Saginaw. And when I first got here, let me tell you this real quick. When I first got to Saginaw, I knew then, and I said it, and I've said it every decade, that when you take the corner of Washington and Genesee and go down, across the river, and then go down to the Dixie, that'll show you the power of politics.
Yep.
And I'm just going to leave it right there, because politics is about economics. Right. It's about making lives better, not worse. And so if you
that's historic, and
go down to Dixie, go down to the Dixie. It's a safe haven for nonprofits. And I'm not saying that they aren't good. Thank God for the Eastside Soup Kitchen. Thank God for the Rescue Mission. Thank God for Mustard Seed and Emmaus House. But anybody got help wanted signs out there? There's no big cranes out on Lapeer, and no. So to me, this loss of power, this loss of divisive or because of divisive politics means that it reflects itself in cement and bricks and mortar. And that's the part of me that, as if you wanted to call me a Republican, I never lost, because I think we should be more vested in that. Like, who's asking the question about the fairgrounds? Who's asking the questions about what's up on any of the Lamson Street? What's happening there? I watch city council. I'm stupid because I like politics. I watch city council all the time. I don't hear that from there. I hear a lot of things, but I'm talking about things that are tangible. And from a political standpoint, that's probably why I always got in trouble, because when I advocated on behalf of my politics, I won. And maybe and that's one of the reasons people don't like me, because we won.
We're getting near the end of our time together, Jimmy. And personally, I appreciate our friendship.
Oh, absolutely.
I cherish
best friends,
because, ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Jimmy and I. We do this when there's no camera. We do this when there's no microphone. We can, with our limitations, be completely transparent in our thoughts, because we know each other. And no matter what other people see about us, that we know the core of who we are. But there are people that—
Can I just say something on top of that? Because we have the same outcomes in mind.
The goals, I was about,
the methods, maybe we differ. Outcomes, exactly the same.
Which is exactly what folks, ladies and gentlemen, he took the words out of my mouth.
It's the first.
And as we, not the first time, you're always taking people's words. But as we come to the close of this, the Saginaw African American Pastors conversation, transforming faith, transforming the community, it's important for people to have the ability to be honest,
yes,
and to be transparent
and different,
and be willing to hear right and wrong.
Mm-hmm.
There have been times when I've said, Jimmy, you're absolutely wrong on that.
Absolutely.
There have been times you say,
and I was,
but you were absolutely wrong, and I have to admit it and agree with it. So, because that's the only way, because iron does sharpen iron. The last minute that we have, I want you to tell that people are watching, they're looking at you, they're looking in your face, and they may have pain looking at you, but they got to endure. But they're listening to your voice.
Yeah.
In the last minute, can you just tell them from your heart what you would really like Saginaw to look like?
Oh, that's funny. It's the last minute too, but I want Saginaw to look like. I want Saginaw to look like what it says it is. And right now it isn't. When you talk about, and I love what the mayor says about a new day and a new season and planting seeds, but I would like Saginaw at some point to look like the seed that is planted, but not harvest. And I think about the economic power in particular of an equality in Saginaw, that it is vibrant on the east side of this place as it is on the west side of the state. So it's inclusive for all Saginaw folks. But I think that for me, and I hope, and I got to say this, I don't want to die in the Saginaw that you and I helped build. I want to die in the Saginaw that our children build. That's what I want to see. I don't know what that looks like, but I hope that the power of your children and my children builds something that even you and I can't see. That's what I want for Saginaw.
I can appreciate that. I love it whenever my children see Jimmy Green, he's not Mr. Green, he's Uncle Jimmy.
That's right.
And it's the same for us. And we do have this. The Bible says in 2 Corinthians, the 4th chapter, the 7th verse, it says, "For we have this treasure in earthen vessels, that the excellency of the power may be of God and not of us." Because we don't look at what we see, we look at what God says. I think that the people in Saginaw will benefit. Saginaw African American Pastors, thanks you, Jimmy Green, for giving us this time. Our community thanks you, and I want to thank all of you for tuning in. Do something crazy. Send a note to 107. Send a note to what's the next media?
Alpha Media.
Alpha Media. Thanks, Matt. Matt is a great engineer. Send a message to him and tell him that you really appreciate the SAP program, Faith Transforming Lives, because we want to stay in the process of doing this. Thank you to all of the pastors who are members, and for those who are not members, you need to hurry up and get your membership in. Let's be a part of Saginaw African American Pastors, Faith Transforming Lives, and transforming this community one life at a time. Until the next time, we'll see you. Thank you again, Jimmy.
Appreciate you, Bishop.